As you've gotten to know Devin more and know his strengths, what I guess makes you most excited about him in your offense?
um, that you don't have to be perfect as a play caller because he just kind of makes things right. When things break down. No, yeah, obviously you want to put him in good situations, but that is one of the key components to the ball moving, and we're able to see that in practices when he just kind of takes over or something kind of breaks down, and he's still able to make something out of it. But his playmaking ability coupled with the progress that he's made as a leader, as a decision maker, his processing within the offense, all those kind of things. I'm really anxious to see it all come to fruition.
How are you feeling about the current state of the offensive line, not having that starting five solidified yet, and just the potential guys who could emerge there?
Yeah, so still, a little bit of mixing and matching going on, but I think as a total unit, there's enough chemistry there, regardless of who you put in there, where the communication is really good because those guys have been around each other and they've been in the system now for a little bit, and so I think there's a comfortability with those guys regardless of who's in there. There's trust being developed regardless of who's in there at what spot, and still just trying to solidify things a little bit.
Is there one area of this offense where you feel most confident, or maybe surprised you as you've gotten this far into it after maybe starting at the beginning of the year?
Feel confident that we have playmakers at some different spots. I think there's, when the ball's distributed, you're not really in a panic in terms of whose hands it's going to fall in. But I think our ability to mix and match personnel and formation to attack people some different ways that way, guys have shown proficiency in being able to execute different things with our schemes and with our presentation. So I like the direction that's headed. I like where we're headed culturally, in terms of just the effort that they play with and the physicality that they play with. I think that's come a long ways as well. And so, yeah, a lot of things that I think they're doing pretty well right now.
A lot of people have said that you like throwing the ball as part of your offense, but you also have Wayshawn Parker, Daniel Bray, a ton of good running backs. How do you kind of balance out all the talent that you have on offense? Because it seems like you have plentiful talent.
Yeah, no, I've kind of mentioned this. I think there's been places where maybe it was a necessity to throw, and we're throwing it more capitalized on the skill set of your quarterbacks or maybe the receivers that you had. If you felt like that was a strength of your offense, and so to me, it's more just centered around your personnel. We have Wayshawn back there, and Wayshawn needs to get, he needs to take on his share of the load, and he needs to be able to showcase that and have those opportunities. But you also got Bray back there that you can use in some similar ways as Wayshawn, some different ways as Wayshawn, in terms of his skill set. So to me, it's not so much about running and throwing it; it's just making sure that you're featuring your personnel the right way and that you're distributing to the right people at the right times.
How important is it to have an established hierarchy in terms of who gets this many looks, who gets this many touches?
I think important. I think it's, you never want to come out of a game and you have playmakers that didn't get opportunities. When you look at a stat sheet, whether it's guys on the perimeter getting targets or guys in the backfield getting carries. I fell into that a little bit last year with, running back that we were trying to get carries a lot of, but then you're RPO or triple option based, and then all of a sudden the ball's not in his hands as much as you would like it to be. And so there is a delicate balance of that. Some of it you got to pay attention to within the game to be charting that and see how it's unfolding that way. And then if you come out of a game and it's not what you wanted, then how you approach the next game, philosophically, how you're scripting calls or sequencing calls, to make sure that certain guys are getting involved. I think it's important.
Excluding the Rhinos and Hunter, because they're a different breed of their own. What does this
yes, they are.
What does this tight end room, what does their usage look like? What should fans expect from the tight ends this year?
I think those guys have come a long way. Hunter even was one of the ones that, like, if you had just asked me the tight ends in general, I would have said he was one of the most improved in that room, along with Kanai, but Hunter, I think, was showing this fall camp what we expect him to be all along. Couldn't really showcase that as much in the spring because he was still coming back from his injury, but is starting, a guy that can stretch the field and a guy that you can package some things around. But I think they've all really developed as inline guys in terms of blocking, with their ability to execute things in the pass game and make some plays, contested catches, things like that. And so the biggest thing I see in that room is just a bunch of versatility and different guys that you can utilize different ways in terms of your personnel packages.
How have you seen Dampier show his leadership since you've been here?
I think becoming more vocal, with the unit and with the team. I think the way he carries himself on the field, with those guys has, made marked improvements. And so I think, and I think with him, a big factor in all of it was just how comfortable he was with the offense. It's sometimes hard to be a leader, and especially a vocal leader, when you're out there and you're kind of swimming a little bit. But the more confident you get, the faster you're playing, then you can start to think about those other things and, getting other guys going, because you're not so worried about yourself and making sure that you know what's going on and that you're, taking care of your role first. So.
Outside of Braden Pagan, who are some of the other wide receivers that you feel have had great fall camps and really stepped up?
Yeah, Ricky Johnson really stepped up. Creed Whitmore has really stepped up. Creed probably has carved out more of a role than what he even had in the spring. But I would say especially those two guys.
Brendan Rowe is now on the roster. How much does that afford you to be able to be or utilize Burt Ficklin a little bit more, knowing that you do have some depth in case you need it?
Yeah, I think, regardless of, it's awesome to have Brandon. They're just, someone with, that experience, game experience. He's been awesome for the room. He's been awesome for our team, the offense, and all those kind of things. But yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily look at it any different, regardless of whether he was there or not, because I think Burt has the type of athleticism and talent that you're going to want to find ways to use him regardless of what that looks like. So.
Last one from Andrew.
Back here. Can you talk about the strength of having the experience and the leadership of a Devin Dampier, but then the youth and the work ethic of a Burt Ficklin, and how much fun it makes your job to be able to watch these two make each other better?
Yeah, it's every day is really fun with those guys. I mean, just watching them interact, being involved in their process, but I would kind of categorize it like you said, you have Dev that has quite a bit more experience, and and in some ways that shows up. I think that's why he's the leader of our offense and our starting quarterback. But to see Bird learn from him, to see them challenge each other, really cool dynamic. And when you get in packages where they can both make an impact, they have a lot of fun with that stuff. And so, yeah, really, really cool thing. So.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Who's the